to be starting in a few moments. Please take your seats. Please take your seats, and we're going to be starting. We have actually a long-established history and research in our faculty. However, I must say, when I first came to York in 1984, there were only several of us who published in reference journals, and I think I might have been the only person who had an external research grant. But boy, things have changed.
Today's celebration offers an opportunity to learn more about the research that's being done at York aimed at addressing the challenges and opportunities facing educators today.
I was at a discussion a few days ago. I think it was one of these clubs put together individuals to speak about education, and they had several past presidents of some of the large universities that you know about, and they were reflecting on 10 years, the past 10 years of education and where they see education going, both at all levels in our province. And so, as I see the question here, is institutional learning dead? I think that those individuals who were top of their game and who've made a lifetime of study around research and where education in this province is heading, what needs to be done, how we could complement so many things. I think that maybe we should have had them in this discussion with you today.
One of the things I love about being part of this faculty is the opportunity to learn from my colleagues. It can be a hallway discussion about the kind of research individuals are involved in. It can be reading articles or books by my colleagues. It can be sharing your work with my students. The research celebration is also really special because it means bringing us all together at one time in one place to share and celebrate the work of our colleagues.
We picked a question that we don't know how people are going to take it up. And we pick a question that we anticipate that it will ask the panelists to think about their research perhaps in a way that they haven't hitherto thought about it. But we try and ask a question that deliberately is open enough that just about any researcher who is in our faculty can come into the conversation and have a way to articulate their research in relation to the question, so that what happens, we hope, is a little bit of a dynamic thing, because you get people who normally don't talk to each other in research circles talking to each other.
Okay, so is institutional learning dead? I do think that it is possible to talk about institutional learning, provided that one bear in mind that institutions are made up of people who make decisions with the assistance of protocol manuals and policies and procedures and historic practices that may at times be open and responsive to changing circumstances and may at times be interested in and willing to come up with creative solutions to problems and to innovate in response to opportunities that present themselves. So with reference to the Borderless Higher Education for Refugees project, or the BHER project, I'd like to talk about two groups of institutions, funding agencies and universities, for whom I hope institutional learning is not dead.
So as an institution, news media has its own conventions and hot topics that get covered, and I question then if these students see a place for their own lives in this kind of public forum. So with regards to the initial question, is institutional learning dead, I suggest that there needs to be a re-examination of not only who institutional learning serves, but also how institutional learning presents itself. To ask what is dead or alive requires first an interrogation of what can be seen and what falls invisible behind more apparent institutional structures, like curriculum and board-sanctioned campaigns that influence what students come to see as valued knowledge.
Is institutional learning as dead as the parrot, or is it a matter of perception? Is it a case perhaps of breathing new life into institutional learning and the institutions that support it? To consider aspects of this question, I'm going to use examples from my own research and work in the field of deaf and hard of hearing education and with deaf and hard of hearing learners. I think the context provides a productive landscape against which to position questions of institutional learning and can provide insights for a wider examination of these questions in broader educational domains. In the example I will present, I will look at the ways in which a medical technology, something typically seen as outside the sphere of education, has changed the nature of institutions and institutional learning and the population of learners and the teachers who work with them. Specifically, I challenge us to think about these questions. Was institutional learning ever alive in the first place? What do we mean by institutional learning? And how do institutions themselves engage in institutional learning?
What is institutional learning? Well, I think generally I'm thinking of it in terms of students who come here and learn with us and from us and hopefully we from them. But also institutional learning for me is about how the institution learns from within and from outside. And so linking with today's celebration, institutional learning is as much about the research that we do and the research that we share and the research that we learn from as it is about teaching and working with students. But I'm the director of the teaching commons, so you shouldn't be surprised if I now focus more on the teaching side of things. Having said that, I do some research myself.
Having worked all my life in and with educational institutions, I cannot accept that institutional learning is dead. If it were, I wouldn't feel the pulse I do when I enter and exit my classroom, engage with students or colleagues' research, connect with students years after their graduation, or represent York abroad in international collaborations. I know from these experiences that I and my institutions are far from dead. This does not mean that the institution itself hasn't changed. It has. Universities are now multiversities. They aren't only represented by bricks or mortar, or bound by national borders. Their populations are much more diverse. However, through these changes, they remain institutions of learning. So to me, the question isn't about institutional learning being dead, but rather how institutional learning comes alive.
I have to say, I'm always quite impressed when I hear my colleagues, and what impresses me is the span of thinking, you know, across so many different topics and continents and so on. So what we're going to do now is to invite you all to engage in a discussion with our panelists. So I turn it over to you to get your head into the question of institutional learning.